Dina Does. I'm Dina, and I know a little bit about a lot, but I want to know more. So join me on this path to self-discovery. Welcome to this episode of Dina Does, and today we'll be continuing our conversation on the nervous system, but we'll be focusing in on some emotions that we kind of push away while healing our nervous system. And our guest today is a very, very wise woman, Dr. Sarah Campbell. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh my goodness, I'm so happy to have you here. I found you through Instagram as Medicine Mami. And I love that you're kind of leaning into your lineage for your social, because we need so much more of that indigenous flavor in this healing space, because there's a lot out there that's kind of not really walking the walk these days.
I agree 1000%. Yes.
Yeah. We here at Dina Does, we put a really big focus on honoring where a lot of this medicine and the sacredness comes from in healing. And, you know, it's a hard, I've spoke about this before. I'm like an Italian girl from Jersey, but I really lean into this work and I struggle with a bit. So I have a lot of shamans, from other parts of the world kind of guiding me on how to be a bridge to this work. So I love when we can have guests on that really embody that. So I appreciate your essence and your knowledge and your wisdom for being here today.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'd love to just introduce myself a little bit too. My background is in naturopathic medicine. So I have a doctorate in naturopathic medicine, and then I'm finishing up my master's in East Asian medicine or traditional Chinese medicine and acupuncture. So those are kind of the worlds that I exist within. And then I've done a lot of work, shamanic work with mostly the Andean and Shipibo lineages, which is like South American lineages, way early in my early 20s. And that's been a really big part of my journey as well. So I really love tying in all of those different lenses and all of those different modalities into my work and into my medicine.
Oh my goodness, I love it so much. I love it. We can learn so much from you, but we're going to hone in today because we only have, a short time here in Dina Does, but we'd love to have you back to do all of it, because the Chinese medicine, the Asian, everything is what we're all about here. But specifically, one of the things that I find on my healing my nervous system that come up is we're kind of always leaning into just the anxiety of it all and not the specific emotions that will come up after trauma and everything. So one of the emotions that I've always struggled with is anger, because as a good little girl, we're not allowed to get angry. And, that was a big thing. I'm the youngest of 11 children, and we weren't allowed to show many emotions at all. Forget about anger. And anger to me was a scary thing until I saw your post. So if you don't mind, I have it pulled up here, but do you know what post I'm talking about? Because I'd much rather you read it than me.
Yeah, probably my Your Anger is Sacred post.
Yes.
Yeah. So I would love to speak a little bit about that. And I resonate with so much of what you say too, because I think that most people, especially women, little girls, like we grow up learning that anger is to be suppressed essentially. And so even what you were saying on anxiety and this dysregulation, like all of this actually ties into the emotion of anger, because a lot of times on the surface of anger, there is a lot of dysregulation. There can be anxiety. There can be just a withdrawnness, just depression. There's irritability on the surface of anger. And so a lot of times people will just actually stay on that surface and never go into the layer beneath all of those emotions, which is our anger. And then what's actually beneath our anger is this like ocean of tenderness, of grief, of love, which love and grief are the same emotion, but just on different sides of the spectrum. And so a lot of times we just stay on that top layer. Every time we get triggered, we're just like, okay, our go-to is anxiety, or our go-to is just immobilizing and laying in bed all day, or distracting ourselves with social media or whatever it is. So we just stay on that top layer instead of actually going into the layer of anger, because we have just been taught to repress those emotions and not to go there. And so I think that when we're talking about the nervous system, like that's a massive burden on the nervous system to not actually be able to tap into our anger and to tap into all of these emotions that we are feeling. And so that has become a really enormous part of the work that I do. I do a lot of work with mostly women, and mostly women that have chronic disease, which comes with immense dysregulation, and tapping into those layers, those really deep layers of anger and rage is so essential to freeing the nervous system and freeing the body of all of this repression and suppression.
Yeah, and I'm sure you could relate to me, Italian household, Latin household, the anger was always for the men, that it's okay for them to show their rage or anger, and the women just had to keep quiet. But that's how now I perceived anger going out in the world, is mimicking that kind of thing, which did not resonate with me. So when you posted that about anger being sacred is more for protection rather than, if, can you read the entire post? Do you have it pulled
Sure.
up? Yeah,
Yeah.
I would love for you to read what you wrote underneath the anger is sacred part, so people can understand what I'm referring to as far as the protection piece.
Yeah, of course. So I wrote, my entire life, even just a few years ago, if someone were to ask me, I would have never identified with the emotions of anger or rage. I would just say, oh, I don't get angry. And I really believed that. I truly believed that. It had been repressed and suppressed under so many layers of conditioning. We live in a world where repressing emotions are celebrated. All of the times that I repressed my anger or rage, I was met with the celebrations of, wow, you are so mature. You handled that so well. And so it further conditioned me to equate repressing those emotions with praise and ultimately love. I saw so many unsafe expressions of anger my entire life that I didn't know there was an ability or a possibility for me to have a safe and healthy expression of it, and I was afraid of it. But anger is a beautiful emotion on the spectrum of human emotion. It was not that I didn't get angry, it was that I was paralyzed in being able to actually get in touch with my anger. All I ever saw was anger and rage destroy. I never got to see it in its native form of protecting. Anger exists to protect us. So how can we honor it? And instead of pushing it away or avoiding it, can we instead stand powerfully within it? Most of us have never been taught to stand powerfully within it. We've been taught to project it outwards. We yell, we fight, we blame, we cause destruction to the world directly around us, or we turn it all inwards and we stuff it down to fester. Neither of these expressions of anger allow us to stand in our power of the alchemy of the anger. Holding ourselves in ceremony, allowing ourselves to be in the body with the big fiery emotions of anger and rage through dance, through movement, through shakes, through cries and screams, allows us to alchemize the power of those emotions and deepen the power that is us.
I'm like filled with chills and just about to cry. And you have to, we could talk about this, but I'm just coming off a 2-day medicine journey and kind of coming back to earth still. So everything is resonating so deeply with me and so emotional, because this is why I do this work, is to really bring people like you on who can further help us dive into these misunderstood emotions. And being from my background of reality TV and leaving that for doing this kind of work now, I made a post last week about all the anger on reality TV these days and why it's so popular. But just what you just said, that's what we're taught. What anger is firing out at someone else. So I really want to lean into the piece of how to move through it and alchemize it. And I've done many modalities myself, and we've talked about a little bit about them for those of you who listen to every episode, where as I learn, as I go through life, I learn to give birth to it. I've learned to dance it out. I've learned to recently, when Manjeet on, sing it out. And I've also learned to sit with it and just be the witness to it all and move it through, and then be able to express it to someone that this anger may be directed towards. So I just want you to give a quick overall reaction to all of those things that I just said. And then I have specific questions that a friend of mine who was in the space this weekend with me has asked me to ask you. So.
Yeah. Oh, that's so beautiful. And I love all of the expressions that you have and all of the outlets that you have for witnessing and actually just existing with the anger in your body. Like that is so beautiful. And I do believe that's how we alchemize it, is to be with it. That's how we let emotions move through us, actually, is to just be with them, right? It's like I always talk about, people are like, how do I move through these heavy emotions? And I'm like, well, how do you move through light emotions? How do you move through joy? How do you move through love? How do you move through happiness? You don't think about it. You don't push it away. You're not like, oh my gosh, I have to compartmentalize this and I have to intellectualize this. No, you just let it move through you. And so in the same way that we let those beautiful light emotions move through us, that's how we let the heavy emotions move through us too. We just be with them. And movement is such a beautiful way to be with anger, and just allowing it to actually be free and wild, because I think that it's like kickboxing or going to the gym. It's like these very methodical ways of being with anger. It's like, yes, okay, but like, do you really actually let it be in its like fiery, wild expression? Like anger is just like fiery and wild. It's like dancing, singing, just like this free creative expression, I think, is the most beautiful way and the best way that we can actually truly alchemize the emotion of anger. So I love all of those. And I myself, I love doing like rage ceremonies, and that includes a lot of movement, and it can also include your voice as well.
And fire, I would imagine fire, burning, all of that really resonates with anger.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, I love it. And like you said, you have to find what resonates with you at that specific time. So there was a time that I never even thought to use my voice because I can't hold a note. But now it's like, who cares what it sounds like? If it's stuck here, it's got to get out, because that's you using your voice. That's you standing up for yourself in future incidents where you may be traumatized instead. So whoever's listening to this, wherever you feel like the first few minutes, what I like to do now that I acknowledge anger, because for a long time I was like, no, I'm of the light. There is no anger here. No, there is. I like to feel where it is in my body first and just acknowledge, is it in my lower back? Is it in my heart? Wherever it is. And then move through it in whatever way calls to you in any of those modalities or all of them.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, anger is an interesting thing specifically for me because we had a lot of conversations this week of, those of us who kind of resonate more with femininity and softness, and those of us who resonate with a little bit more masculine energy, and both are very, very necessary. So yes, kickboxing or going to like one of those rooms where you knock the shit out of everything and break everything, that can definitely get stuff out as well. But you have to honor what you're feeling and what works for you. And it may ebb and flow, it may change. So you have to really know all this. So I'm going to give you some questions. You're in the hot seat now. I did not send these to you beforehand. So
No
whatever
worries.
comes to your mind, you know how that works. Okay. So how do you go from someone who never feels, expresses anger to being in full expression? I think we kind of just gave some of those. Yes.
I was going to touch on that too, actually, after you finished your last thought too, because I do feel like a lot of people, and especially women that have never actually been able to be in touch with their anger, they have that same question. They're like, okay, this sounds beautiful, but how do I do this? And so that's why I have pretty much in every container that I host, I will include rage ceremonies within it, because I feel like if you can be guided through it one time, then you know that you can do it. Because I like to invite everyone to realize that your body is absolutely incredible and amazing at holding ceremony. Our bodies hold ceremony for us every single day. Like
Exactly.
emotions are a ceremony. And so when people are like, I don't know how to do this, it's like, of course you do. Your body has held you through the worst days of your life and the best days of your life, and every single one of those days was a ceremony of emotion. And so I just invite people to just be with their emotions in whatever way that they are called. And I think that yeah, just encouraging people to know that, of course, you can do this because you do it every day. You've done it on your worst days, you've done it on your best days, and you can do it with this new emotion. Maybe it's a new emotion that you've never sat with in ceremony before, but it's absolutely possible. And I think that once you are guided through it one time, then you're like, oh, I can do this. I got this. So that's a beautiful way to begin, I think.
And we need that sisterhood to show us the way to get into it. And once you said, once you tap on it and it's open, you'll be able to recognize it moving forward and to continue. And I love that you just said that that ceremony, you're doing it all day long. It's just unintentional. When women learn to be intentional with ceremony, whether it's making your coffee in the morning and what you're putting into that, or for me, it's tea or hot water with lemon, that's a ceremony in itself. But we're just going through the motions of our day and not recognize it. But when you become intentional with these ceremonies, it begins there. The moment you open your eyes, the moment your foot touches the ground, that could be like, today I'm going to honor every emotion that comes up, and then it'll start unfolding from that moment on.
Exactly. I love that.
Love it, love it, love it. Okay. So how do we express our authentic anger to others in a productive way?
Oh, I love that question. Yeah, because that is what anger, the protection side of anger is boundaries, right? And I think that one of the most important things is if you tend to be like in the fight or flight, you're a fighter where you're projecting your anger outwards. I think making sure that you have tools to really honor your body in that moment, where you can like take a walk, or like get that fight energy out in another way, and then be like, you know what, I'm not in a place to have this conversation right now, but I'm going to go ground and I'm going to go collect myself, and then I'm going to come back to this in an hour or in a day or in a week or whatever it is, where you have time to like go get your fight energy out in whatever way you need to, and then return back to the conversation where from a more grounded place. I think that's really important. And then yeah, just communicating your boundaries. It's like, if somebody crossed a boundary and it made you angry, then you get to communicate that, but then you also get to alter how much access that person has to you, because we get angry because we trust people and we love people. And that's what's underneath anger. That's why we get angry, is because there's an ocean of love and tenderness, and we give people access to all of that love and tenderness, and then they betray us, or they lose our trust, and then we're like, hey, I gave you my heart, I gave you my love, I gave you all of my, like, the tenderest parts of me, and you didn't hold it with respect. And so then you get to alter the amount of love and tenderness that you share with that person, and you get to communicate that as well.
Absolutely. And to add on to that, you also have to know who it is and what their style is as well. So I love that you said, maybe right now is not the time, and you can let them know we're going to have a heated conversation. So maybe you need to go take a walk and get some of that knee-jerk reaction out of you, because I really am doing this from a place of love and moving forward. So allowing them to prepare, not just yourself.
Exactly. Yes.
It's also an amazing tool. What can we do if you tried all modalities for release? You've even spoken your truth to those who are triggered, and you still hold a seed of anger.
Well, I think anger is not something that we don't do these practices to get rid of the anger. I don't think that. So it's like, we don't do a ceremony to like, we're like, I have to get rid of this thing. I think that's really important, because I think in new age spirituality, it's a lot of times like, I have to get rid of this heavy emotion, I have to get rid of this sadness, I have to get rid of this anger, I have to get rid of something. We don't have to get rid of them, we just have to accept them, actually. And so can you accept that part of yourself that's angry? Like, can you accept your anger? Can you accept having the full range of human emotion, and not being like, I have to fix this thing, like there's something wrong with me because I am holding anger in my body? No, that's perfectly normal and healthy. Perfectly normal, healthy human emotion, just as sadness and grief and fear. Like, these are all things that I think when we experience them, it's like, how can we actually invite them in closer and be like, come sit down, like, I want to hear what you have to say. Like, invite those emotions closer and closer, turn it up, louder and louder and louder. What are you saying? What do you have to say? What are you bringing to me? Like, how can I invite you into my experience, instead of like, how do I get rid of this part of me? Because essentially you're trying to get rid of part of who you are, you know? And I think that we'd have to do the opposite. We have to invite those pieces of ourselves in closer and closer and accept them.
I love that. And it also goes back into a thought that I was having, your original post. That little seed that's left is for protection.
Mm. We
You know,
need it.
we need it. So
Yeah.
anything that's left or lingering, that's you, your higher self saying, maybe this person needs more boundaries, or maybe this person is not to be in your life. Or, you know, if they have to be in your life, if it's a family member or what have you, no one has to be in your life. But let's say, you know, how can we just rephrase or frame is the word I'm looking for, what that boundary looks like. Maybe the one that you thought was in place is not the right one. Maybe that looks or feels a little different. So explore it. And I found a lot, I resonate with what you say, is I've always tried to push through these emotions and like release, release, release. I do a lot of releasing ceremonies. I like that we can release the heat of it, how it's affecting us so much in that moment, but sit with the fact that we signed on for this human experience, and it encompasses a range of every emotion, and sit in the gratitude of that. How like I hear that there is a waiting list to get down here on earth and experience this full range of emotion. So really sit in gratitude to that we're able to feel this full range, and that it does exist for protection, for ceremony, and for these little hints as to how to move forward in life.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'd love just comparing all of those heavier emotions or denser emotions with joy. It's, you know, it's like, imagine replacing in that question, anger with joy. It's like, oh, I have the seed of joy. What do I do with it?
Yeah.
Oh, beautiful. That's beautiful. I'm so glad you have that seed of joy. Like, thank gosh, you know.
Perfect. We're going to get to joy in a minute because that's the second half of this. So I have one more question from Danielle, who's my sister who sent me these. What if the person who hurt or angered you is dead, or better yet, alive, but doesn't care if they hurt you?
That is a beautiful question. And those can be sometimes like our greatest teachers and healers, honestly, because I feel like usually relationships are mirrors into our own woundedness. Like our closest relationships are like stages for us to kind of hash out our deepest wounds. And so I would say that just doing a lot of like reflective practices around like, what does that mean? Like, what emotions are elicited from that person not being in your life, or that person betraying you, or like, what are the truths that are behind all of that, all of those wounds, you know? And then just like getting to that core woundedness and being like, oh, this is an inside job. Like, this is actually something that it's a core wounding that I have within me, that it has nothing to do with this person. It just has to do with my relationship with myself.
I love that. I was trying to, my daughter and I had a conversation about this, and it really, you know, you're healing when you have gratitude for the people who hurt you. And you're like, you really look at it as a gift. And I know that sounds really fucked up to say that, because a lot of people who have been hurt are like, no, thanks. But when you can get to a place of like, oh my gosh, what a gift you allowed me to heal this generational wound, this something that's been deep inside of me for all these years, and you were able to bring it out and through.
No, it's so absolutely true. So absolutely true. I can say that personally about what brought me to my own anger. It was like the relationships in my life. It was just like, are you going to get angry? Are you going to get angry? Are you going to get angry? It was just like pushing me until I was like, okay, I'm going to get angry. Like, and it was such a beautiful gift. And I'm so grateful, you know, all of these years later now for those relationships, truly.
Yeah. And even I referenced my husband, who's a Scorpio, and it wasn't until I met him and he brought out all these things in me that I was suppressing for all these years. And it pissed me off in the beginning. I'm like, what the heck is going on here? But now, like, it brought our love so much deeper because he was my greatest teacher, through these last 10 years of growth. I've had other teachers in the past as in the form of a husband, but to have him on both sides of this, bringing up all this, kind of darkness, and the Scorpio will do that. But in the end, the healing and the light and the love that's on the other side of it is just like so magical. And that's why I know that we're in this for the long run, because we really helped each other. And I brought out so much light in him. And that wasn't easy for him, but worked through it. And we, as anyone who's in your life, any relationship is a constant mirror of what you have to work through inside of you. And in the end, the beauty and the peace that comes with acknowledging every emotion is so worth it. Is so worth it.
I love that. I'm a Scorpio rising, so a lot of
I
my
knew you had some Scorpio in you. I could see it.
so my work is very, very in the Scorpio realm.
Yeah, which is beautiful and necessary. But for years, I was like, nope, not for me. Nope, not for me. I only go in the light. I only go, it's balance. So this post, and I have a 27-year-old daughter, and to move through this healing, like my mom is amazing and I love her dearly. Again, mother of 11 children, different generation, taught me magic in different ways, whether she knew it or not. But to be able to work with my daughter in all these modalities is such a beautiful gift. I wish I had the knowledge and grace that she does at 27. So this really resonated with her, because after a really hard relationship and breakup, she went through this phase of like just having a good time. And it was so weird to me, because I'm so pensive and dark, and I kind of burrow, and people won't see me for months after I go through some trauma. Again, everyone has their ways of dealing. So I was watching her do this, and as a mom, a little worried, like, is she masking? Is she whatever? But I finally realized what she was doing when I saw your post, and it resonated with me so much. Is just as we heal and evolve through pain and suffering, we can just as powerfully heal and evolve through joy and pleasure. Love it.
Yes. Oh, that's like a brand new ideal for me as well. Cause I think that most of my 20s were incredibly tragic and painful and traumatic. And I just equated that, but I grew so much. And I was like, well, this is just how you grow. I was like, well, okay, like, yes, it was heavy. Yes, it was difficult, but like, look who I am. So I'm so grateful for it. And I'm just like, okay, this is how you grow. And this has been just brand new of just like evolving through joy and pleasure, where I'm just like, oh, I'm entering a new era where I just want to learn and grow through joy and pleasure, because it's so incredibly beautiful and powerful. And like, we get to do that. It's like every time that we want to grow or evolve, we don't have to be in this like doom and gloom of like, oh, I have to go through all this pain and all of this loss and all of this tragedy. And just on the flip side of that, it's like, no, we can just as powerfully grow and evolve through joy and pleasure.
I love that, because I always looked at joy and pleasure as the rewards of moving through pain. And to reframe it and think of it, no, this is part of moving through the pain. And it's beautiful in more ways than just what the naked eye is seeing. So that really, really helps me get out of this deep pensive person that I am, because I think 2023 for me was the year that I definitely felt more, okay, Dina, you're done. You've done a lot of deep, heavy work to move through some of the trauma. And now it's time to just celebrate. And to know that as I'm celebrating, as I'm leaning into being more playful and lighter, we're still healing. We're still moving through the pain. Oh my gosh, what a relief.
Yes, because we get to think about like, what does pain and tragedy and trauma do? It like cracks us open, which is so beautiful, right? It's like when we're cracked open, it's just like there's no dysregulation, there's just nothing. We're just pure beingness, which is so beautiful. It's beautiful. But also we can be just as cracked open through joy and through pleasure as well, which is just as healing, which is just as growth filled and evolution filled. And yeah, it's like we desperately need this reframe. Like we need permission that we're like, yes, we can still grow, and yes, we can still evolve when we are having these beautiful seasons of joy and these beautiful seasons of pleasure. Like we deserve that.
Yes, we certainly deserve it. And I'm so grateful to have this conversation. Everything you said is just like, yep, yep, yep. And even your face is like, there she is. Like, I feel like I've definitely known you before in some other timeline, lifetime, whatever it is. And your wisdom is just, we're so grateful for it to share it here. How can we learn more about you and your offerings?
So my main place where I share my work is on Instagram. So my Instagram is at medicine_MAMI, medicine mommy. And I always have my offerings kind of linked in my bio there. And so I usually do about 3 live containers every year. And then I also have some passive courses where you can, tap into my wisdom there as well. And I have things on all of my different passions. So I have passive course on hormone healing from a mind, body, and spirit perspective. I have a passive course on all things beauty, hair, nails, and skin, tapping into all my Chinese medicine, naturopathic wisdoms. And then I do a 10-week container around womb healing, which includes a lot of the ceremonial pieces. I do that alongside my friend who's a Shipibo shaman. And then I have a nervous system regulation container and then a gut healing container as well. So those are all of my passions.
I love it. A little bit of everything. And it's all comes down to regulating and balancing our mind, body, and spirit. Well, Sarah, thank you so, so much for being here and sharing your wisdom. And anyone who's listening, I encourage you to go and click around Sarah's offerings. And it's time to heal, everyone. Time to heal. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.